To all who come, welcome. Disney is the time machine that takes us back, connects us together, and shows us that not even wishing upon a star ever gets old. Now come sit with your friends, Jonelle, Sean, and Megan, as we deep dive into the heart of Disney.
Hi, friends!
Hello, friends.
Today we're talking about 100 Dalmatians
101 Dalmatians.
to
Patches London Adventure.
Yay! I'm sorry, I totally forgot. I was like, London, there's a patch there.
And I thought High School Musical, the series was bad.
Oh.
This is worse.
So if you haven't been paying attention to what's been happening under the Friends of Disney podcast recently, we're going through 101 Dalmatians, the franchise.
And I'm attempting to convince Megan that there may be flaws with the original or that one of the other movies in this series might be better than the original.
And this movie is not the one to prove it.
No, it is not.
No, it is not.
Okay, last week when we did the live action 101 Dalmatians, that was a strong contender. But it did not match up, and this one definitely will not.
So we had a failed recording of this, and in Sean's argument, he said that this movie is basically a Home Alone dog edition.
Yeah, it 100% is. You can't prove me wrong.
I have to disagree in one way.
How?
Okay, so Home Alone is known for like two big things.
Okay.
It being set around Christmas time.
Okay.
And like the booby traps.
Yes.
This movie does not have the booby traps.
Well, I would still argue otherwise if you look at the whole sequence of like them getting out of...
Them jumping on a canvas to get out of a window?
Yes, and the pranking of Cruella and Horace and Jasper to go down the elevator and stuff like that. Hiding with like all the spots like in front of the spotted painting.
Which is probably the best part of the movie.
That was funny. I was laughing at that.
Okay, listen, I hear you, but like, that's not stepping on Legos. That's not burning your hand on a doorknob. That's not like the horrendous things that would have gotten those guys killed over and over and over again.
I mean, no, that's because they're Brits. They're more civilized. What?
To the people who are listening from anywhere that's British, I love and respect you all, but does not listen. We're all uncivilized in our own way.
Here's the thing, though. The storyline is the exact same.
Except one of them's a dog.
Yes, my point proved.
And
it may not have pranks or like the booby traps like on the bad guys in the same way as the Home Alone movies, but that doesn't change that the action sequence at the end lines up as an action sequence just like the end of Home Alone.
How did you feel about like the actor, the dog actor?
I mean, it was weird. It wasn't the same Pongo voice actor, but...
And I was talking about the dog actor. Like I don't know what breed he is.
Are you talking about the guy from Canine Crunchies?
Yeah, Thunderbolt.
Okay, I'm like, which dog actor?
Thunderbolt.
The voice actors or...
Oh, Thunderbolt.
I mean, okay, so if you've never seen the second...
Oh my gosh, hold on. I just had a brain blast moment. It'll take like 5 seconds. Remember Bolt with Miley Cyrus?
No.
There was a movie that was like 3D animated.
Yes, there was a movie. Yeah, it was called Bolt.
I'm pretty sure like Miley Cyrus was like the human girl.
I don't remember this. I never actually watched it.
I watched it a lot growing up. Fun fact, they just stole Thunderbolt from this movie and slapped it on. They were like, ooh, we can have 2 dogs named Bolt and make them both like superheroes. Okay,
to
continue.
be fair, no one actually remembers this movie. But like, Thunderbolt's whole thing was all right. I just find this whole plotline stupid because I get the struggles of if you were to have like 98 other siblings, but to have a whole plotline where you have this one puppy having like being sad they're not in the spotlight, I don't know. I just think that's a lame story. I feel like there's versions of that story that actually work. I think about the show Stuck in the Middle. The whole thing with Stuck in the Middle was that like you have the middle child, which is known to be the forgotten child.
Which is hilarious because considered our middle children in our families.
But like that is more of a like way of doing that type of storyline that makes sense because everyone knows the middle child to be the forgotten child. And that's why the main character of that show is the middle child. Here, you have one random puppy. They could have picked any puppy
Mm-hmm.
for this. Any one of the 99 of them.
98. There's 98 puppies.
There's 99 puppies total.
99.
Any 99 of them
Okay, yeah.
could have been the star of this movie. It didn't have to be Patch.
It would have been better if it was Lucky.
And there's nothing indicating it that it should be Patch or some other one. The only other puppies you really know about are Rolly, because he's constantly hungry.
He's your favorite, though.
Or Lucky, because he's the one who actually died.
And came back to life.
Hashtag Jesus. Hashtag Dalmatian Jesus. So I find this whole movie around the concept of just being jealous over other people who get attention, because that's also why Thunderbolt's sidekick turns into this quote-unquote villain for him.
I don't like how they characterize corgis.
Yeah.
As a corgi lover, I was like, how dare you?
You would think they would do better by corgis in a place set in London. The Queen loves corgis.
I know. Listen, Sean and I are huge corgi lovers. We like dogs, right? We have an apartment that's way too small for a dog.
Yeah.
One day we hope to own a dog.
Preferably a corgi.
I was gonna say, we have many disagreements on what type of dog it should be.
It's gonna be a corgi.
But we've decided that, like, our number one dog will be a corgi. My runner-up is a golden retriever. See the problem?
But, like, no, you see what I'm saying, though? It was just this constant issue of, like, who gets the attention. Patch wants the attention over all 98 of his siblings. This corgi wants the attention over the lead in the TV show. It's just annoying to me. And I get, knowing me and you, like, we were not the golden children.
No, by far not.
I was never that starved, though, for attention. I don't know how to better say this. I'm gonna move on.
Look, as a kid who often fell through the cracks, my siblings were, like, great at sports and was, like, into this. The other one was into singing and, like, theater. And they had these, like, skills they can actually show off. Like you with your saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
I babysat. You can't really, like, come and watch me babysit. That's, like, not something that most people would allow. And so I didn't have any skills to contribute.
But none of the 98 other puppies were just the exact same as Patch.
Yeah. He was, how do I explain how I'm feeling about this? My brother and I both grew up with ADHD. We were both diagnosed around the same time in our lives. And we expressed it in wildly different ways.
Mm-hmm.
My brother was the hyper one. Like, when you think of, like, oh man, that child has ADHD, think my brother.
Mm-hmm.
I was the more
Introverted one. Yeah.
There's another word for it. Type. Like, all the ADHD was in my head versus he was, like, bouncing off the walls. And my brother also had this dose of anger management. Like, he had holes in his walls because when he got angry, he would, like, slam the door open and break walls.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, oh my gosh, you two are two peas in a pod. You both have ADHD. Your brains work the same way. And I would get really upset by that. I swear this ties back to 101 Dalmatians. I was so hurt by that comment because I was like, my brother is physically, like, breaking walls. I would never do that. And for her to say, you guys are all the same. And I know this was not Pongo or Perdita's thing, where they were like, you guys are all the same. But, like Patch's thing was, like, he knew, like, all of the things from this TV show, right? Like, this is, like, the thing that, like, made him stand out, right?
Yeah.
We saw how, like, important his spot was, and we saw how annoyed all the other puppies were. That, like, he was like, oh my gosh, they're doing this thing from this thing from this thing.
Where I have an issue is that they tried to sell the story by making Patch feel bad, but showed no reverence for any other puppies. Because I understand, like, why you would bring up that story about, like, how your mom compared you and your brother. Besides Rolly, no other puppy is given any ounce of personality to show any sense of, like, preference, catering to, no sense of goldenness. It's simply these couple specific moments where Patch got a short end of the stick. He didn't get his spot. and he was the last on the run to get his food because he was trying to wait in his spot. It was a domino effect because he tried to wait in his spot, but like they made it out to show Patch supposedly being treated badly, but there was no special treatment given to any other puppy other than the sheer amount of food that Rolly gets.
Okay, like, I hear you.
That's where my issue is, though. They just put a puppy in a dark spot without there being an opposite.
Sometimes there doesn't need to be an opposite.
I just don't think this should have been a storyline for this franchise, though.
I hear you, but like, I'm looking at it from Patch's perspective. Okay, think of like 5 of your most embarrassing moments. Now try to think of 5 of my most embarrassing moments. You probably can't think of many of my most embarrassing moments.
Well, I'm your husband. I know way too much about you.
I'm trying to make a point where it's like, you don't usually think of people's other most embarrassing moments. Or you're like, I'm always like, oh, I'm having a bad day at work.
Mm-hmm.
But like, in all reality, other people could be having bad days at work and I'm just not aware of it. I'm saying like maybe other puppies are getting the short end of the stick and we're just not seeing it because we're only seeing it from Patch's perspective.
I get it.
There's 99 other puppies and I guarantee you those parents are worn out.
Oh, 100%.
Because 99?
Mm-hmm.
And they're moving? Their brains are probably on like travels to like...
They're firing on all cylinders. There's no such thing as stress. I feel so bad for Pongo in this movie.
And Perdita.
Yeah.
Who doesn't help him at all with counting.
Doesn't help him. Barely has any lines. She doesn't really exist in this movie.
I love Perdita as a kid. I thought she was so pretty. I thought she was so kind. She was she was such a good mother figure. And I kind of am so mad that she's not in this movie. 1. 2, I also don't like Pongo in this movie.
I know.
Look.
You were so thrown off by his voice actor.
So I watched 101 Dalmatians a lot growing up. And maybe it was just because recently we watched the original 101 Dalmatians. The second Pongo started speaking out like at Sean, I'm like, this isn't Pongo. And Sean's like, Megan, the voice actor's changed. It's been 30 years. And I'm like, this isn't my Pongo.
I have a lot of weird feelings about this movie. The only thing I truly love about this movie is that it proves my point from the first one about Cruella. And I know you heard me say this while we were watching the movie because it was so apparent. But like those of you on social media who didn't like it when I said this, Cruella was only a criminal in the movie in the sense of 15 puppies being stolen. And this movie proved it, considering that she was only put on probation and a restraining order. There was nothing else to charge her with. Horace and Jasper went to jail because they actually stole the 15 puppies, but there was no crime of skinning because there was no one knew about it. No one human, other than Horace, Jasper, and Cruella, knew about the desire to skin the puppies, and so they can't charge her for something that no one really knew. What was that eye roll for?
Continue.
I got nothing else. My point's been proven. I feel satisfied.
I agree with all the people on TikTok. There was someone who was like, girl, leave him. Girl, I would leave him so hard if he hurt a puppy. If you even thought of hurting a puppy.
No one is saying hurting puppies is a good thing. I'm not saying that. But as far as the movie's concerned, she was a criminal only on one basis.
And they're wrong for that.
I'm not saying they're not wrong, but no one knew about it.
Listen, there's only 2 things I like about this movie.
And that is...
One thing I like about this movie.
Martin Short playing the artist guy who attempts to satisfy Cruella's need for spots.
Yes. I like him. Mostly because he's played by Martin Short. Because I'm obsessed with The Only Murders in the Building. It was like my comfort show for a long time. And he's just absolutely delightful in that show. No, this movie just made me sad. It hit a little too close to home. I didn't have 99 siblings, but I did feel similar to Patch. Now, did I run away and meet a celebrity? No. Did I save my siblings from anything crazy? No. Was I be threatened to be skinned alive? No. But like, it made me sad in ways that I'm like tearing up just thinking about.
That's fair. I don't blame you for being sad about that at all. I just don't think... I like that this movie was made, given that it answered certain parts of the first movie.
Such as?
Like we see them get the Dalmatian plantation, which I feel so bad for those animals. We see like what happened to Cruella. Like after the events of the first movie, seeing that she wasn't arrested and those things. And then at the end of this movie, she actually gets put into an insane asylum. Thank God. I just feel like the rest of this storyline just could have been a different storyline.
Listen, I remember when I was younger watching the Incredibles movie. And right after, like at the end of the first Incredibles, there's that cliffhanger with like the mole guy. The Molinator, I believe his name was. And I was like, is there a sequel? Because at the time I just figured out sequels were a thing. And my dad was like, why would there need to be a sequel? I was like, well, are they going to defeat the bad guy? And he's like, they're superheroes. What do you think?
Not always.
And I was like, good point. But I always wanted there to be a sequel. Now there is, but I kind of feel like that with the first movie. Like, I watched into the end, and listen, I was like, Krella destroyed her car. She probably destroyed any, like, good relationships with people that she had. Jasper and Horace probably won't go into those shenanigans again. Probably cut off Cruella de Vil. I know this movie exists, but I wasn't, like, begging for a sequel. I was a child. I was happy as can be. And going back to what you said about, like, you only know a little bit about, like 2-3 characters besides, like, the parents and the humans in, like, the pack of 101. I'm kind of glad for that from, like, a storytelling perspective, because it's like getting to know a good board game, like a card game, and your friend's like, it's fine, we just have to read, like, the entire rule book before you can play. And you're like, oh God, what did I sign myself into? It's kind of what I feel like would have happened if they tried to characterize even, like, 3 more puppies.
Yeah.
And so, like, I understand it lessens the impact of when, like, Patch gets left behind, right? Because we're like, well, we only knew, like, the parents and, like, 2 siblings. Everyone else didn't like him. But also, like, it just makes it really odd, because throughout the whole movie, we're like, his siblings? And when he's like, I want to rescue them, we're like, but why?
Because he wants to be Thunderbolt.
Yes. I mean, okay, listen. I'm going to tell a sad story. So I don't think you guys know this. Not that we do a podcast or anything. I kind of like a little bit of Disney. Just a little bit. Get this. I remember when I was in school, right? I learned this like cool fact about Disney, and I brought it up to my parents. And my parents were like, why can't you put the same effort into your studies in math, history, science, English that you do into your like love of Disney? And I was taken aback by that, because I'm neurodivergent. As mentioned in this episode, I have ADHD, and I don't really get to choose what my brain wants to hyperfocus on. I really don't. It's like they throw a dart in the air, it lands on something, and that's what I'm going to hyperfocus on. Sometimes I can't stop it.
And Disney's fun to hyperfocus on.
Both of my parents are totally neurotypical, at least in this sense. They do not have ADHD. They did not understand. They did not want to understand. I see a lot of myself in Patch when he's like, oh my gosh, this is what I know about the TV show. This thing, and this thing. I kind of feel like it's us with Pokemon, where we're like, oh my gosh, Ash, you should have used XYZ Pokemon instead of Pikachu.
There's like a bazillion other choices Ash could have done in any battle.
Why Pikachu? But instead, like, my parents would be like, why? And all of Patch's siblings are like, shush, we get it. You know things about this TV show. And for a long time, after I like went to middle school and went to high school and went to college, people often said I was a closed book because I wouldn't talk about what I thought was interesting. Because similar to Patch, not on the same extreme scale, but it's like, why are you so interested in this thing?
I get it. And I see like how you would like connect with yourself with Patch and stuff. Because trying to figure out the right words. Like on one hand, like looking at his siblings, if you do have that person who will like constantly interrupt your watching something to say some kind of fun fact, I can see the potential annoyance. Like there's a lot of people who at Disney parks get annoyed at certain Disney adults because they'll recite the entire monologue of the ghost host in the Haunted Mansion.
We are not those people, by the way.
But there are people that do, and they get really irritated by it. Or you had those people, like why when Wicked came out, they had to specify no singing along. We have special sing-along screenings for a reason.
Also not us. We did not sing along.
And stuff. And I think there's just those aspects of it that can get annoying and stuff if you're that company in the room because you're trying to watch the thing. But like, again, I can see like why you'd get annoyed, like why like you would identify so much with Patch in that instance, because if you love something, you just want to share it really badly. You want to share the thing you love with the people around you and enjoy it with them, all the things, because it makes you happy and you want it to make them happy.
Well, here's the hard part about that. For, like I said, my parents would my parents often put down whatever I really liked. Like, for example, I really wanted to get a 3DS. Like, it was like the thing I wanted. I wanted for years. I had like a PowerPoint presentation. I was like, this is the money I earned. I've been saving. I want to get a 3DS. My parents said no. So you know what I did? While they were out of the country, I convinced my grandma to take me to an arcade. It wasn't actually an arcade. It was GameStop, but my grandma didn't know the difference. Thank you, Grandma. And I got a 3DS, and they were so angry with me about it. And they were like, it's just a fad. You'll grow out of it. I don't like that you like Pokemon. You should be into your Bible. And so, you know what I ended up doing was I stopped talking to people about my interests.
Yeah.
Like altogether.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, not in high school, in college.
You had said that because you said people always think you're a closed book.
Yeah. But like, this is like a slightly different thing. He had a writing class where we had to talk about our heartbeat. And I was like,
Animal Crossing.
And I was like, I can't write that I like video games because people are going to think I'm weird. I can't put like reading because I don't read anything besides the Bible because I don't have any time to do anything like that. I can't say watching YouTube videos because there's so many different types of YouTube channels out there that they could be like, oh my gosh, she watches the Paul brothers, which is not true. But like, I ended up putting like, I like sleeping and I like writing and I like walking in the back 40.
That's boring.
But like, people would be like, Megan, what type of music do you like to listen to? I could listen to a little bit of everything. Hey, Megan, what books do you like to read? Oh, I don't really have time to read. But I became, like, you can talk about this.
I don't have anything much more to say on that.
Do you think I was a closed book in college?
Yeah, it took me forever to get you to open up. I'd like chip away at you with like a stone pick, just chipping away.
Would you like to describe like what conversations with me were like?
We literally had like a 3-day conversation where we only talked in Disney lyrics.
I mean, this is true. It was over Snapchat.
But I don't know. No, I just to go back to the movie though. This movie is just not that great of a movie.
I think compared to the adventure of the first one, live action or otherwise, there was like this grandiose thing. Like puppies were kidnapped and then like it was up to the parents to save them. Pongo and Anita did nothing this movie. Literally nothing. So you took away like my favorite part was about like the family and community, which we talked about like the last episode where like people gathering together when the worst happens. And so in this time go around, we brought back the Twilight Bark, but it was just like a one night thing where like
it was less of a one night thing, and it was just like it was made to be like rather than like in the first movie, the Twilight Bark was made out to be this like last resort tool, like only in case of emergencies.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, it was almost like using a phone book.
Yeah, and in the first movie, it's described as like a gossip chain because, like, I don't know why. They didn't really give context why, but, like, it was, like, a big deal, right? That, like, people were using it because of, like, this serious information.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it happened, again.
In the middle of the day, too.
In the middle of the day. The ambiance was not there.
Well, and then, like, it doesn't help that, like, the events of the movie didn't hold up because this whole middle point of the movie was Patch and Thunderbolt
doing random things,
trying to be quote unquote heroes and failing miserably.
It kind of reminds me of like when you're kids and you're playing superheroes. Like obviously you're not being a superhero.
Yeah.
For getting kite out of a tree.
Yeah. But like it was so montagey in a way that it got boring.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of it as a montage because most of the montages Sean and I watch is from Evan and Caitlin, which is a crafting channel where we see them time lapse them
Montage
doing
mode.
something. And so you're right, it was just a very long, drawn out version of a montage.
Yep. It's what kind of like, it kind of got boring in a way of like the live action when you had that 20 minutes where it was just animals. You couldn't understand anything. Where stuff was happening, you're just kind of like, yeah.
If you had to pick a plot for 101 Dalmatians 2, what would you pick?
Okay, my first change would be not having this lengthy of a title. I would just pull what the live action did and just go 102 Dalmatians because it works.
Okay.
The problem is that when you have a movie like the first one, the best way to follow that is almost like with a series and have and now what? You have 101 total Dalmatians. That's a lot of chaos. And that kind of chaos deserves to be captured in a more meaningful way. And I think whether it's a short series or an actual TV series where it's like the events of 101 Dalmatians and stuff would be the better way to go and just capture these moments. So that way you're not focusing on 101 Dalmatians at once. You can microdose it. Here's what 10 puppies got into. Here's a different set of puppies. And the ins and outs between Roger, Perdita, Pongo, Anita, whatever. I know completely mismatched them. I feel like that's a better way to go about it. When you have that scale of characters, because if you think about it, all 101 Dalmatians are their own character. So you're talking a movie where the main characters, there's over 100 of them. When you have that, you need to be able to scale it down.
I hear you. But once upon a time, there was so much at you.
Yes. But we only ever have one Dalmatian, Pongo.
I had to write just like a single story. I'm going to put it 5 years after the events of like the end of the movie, the original movie, right? So the puppies are now teens, adults. I don't know what they would make it because we've only seen puppies and adults. We haven't not seen anything in between.
I mean, 5 years later, they'd be adults.
Right? But we don't know how they were characterized. That is what I'm saying. But I would have them because I think it would be really cool for them to aid in someone else's rescue. They were rescued before to pass it on.
101 Dalmatians, the task force.
Actually, that would be so cool if like Pongo and Anita were approached and were like, okay, so you have these Dalmatians that literally like went across whatever. We want to use some of them to like assist with like helping find other lost dogs.
A Paw Patrol, but with only Dalmatians.
Yes, Marshall. Listen, I love it. I just think it would be so cool for them to like build on the idea of family and community that they did in the first movie.
Yeah, I think having it to where they take more of a secondary role to help someone else who maybe is in like a similar situation, whether it's with Cruella or not, like would be another like one of the only ways they realistically should have gone. Because I don't think this story quite hits it as a follow-up to the first one.
Exactly.
The first one had this sophistication to it between art style, music, scenery, storyline. Like the Twilight Bark, for example, even that sequence of events was like serious, intense, but sophisticated. And here it was trashy and chaotic.
I think the other part that old Disney does really well is they have one thing happening at the same time, and it has a deeper meaning. There's the line that Cruella de Vil says, where it's like, poison them, drown them, bash in the head. Do you have any chloroform? We as adults know exactly what she means when she says all of those things. And we're like, that's terrible. As a kid, we only know maybe bash them in the head. And we're like, oh, that's awful. But as an adult, we're like, oh my God, she's going to poison puppies. Oh my gosh, they're going to drown them. Disney has this way of like
appealing to both audiences.
Bill and yeah. And I feel like there's some movies they do decent with it recently, like Encanto, where like it's a fun movie about like a magical house, but like to everyone who's had harder relationships with other members of their family can really understand Mirabelle and her relationship with everyone else. But I think it's just a thing that we've lost the nuance of.
Well, in this movie as well, as a sequel, falls victim to it being an animated movie. Because the original was an animated movie, but it wasn't cartoony.
Yeah, it was hand drawn and beautiful, and you could see the sketches.
This movie was animated, but it was cartoony.
Yes, oh my gosh.
Which is different.
It was so off-putting. Roger and Anita look less...
I was thinking Cruella.
Yeah, and Cruella. They, like, you described them as, like, sophisticated. I feel like Roger and Anita and Cruella were all, like, so sophisticated in the first one. Like, you could see, like, Cruella's furs moving in the first one.
But, like, their faces and overall structure stayed relatively the same. They were a cohesive person.
Yeah.
The medium they were drawn in was irrelevant.
Mhm.
Like, you could see a real person in those people. Here, they were cartoons in the, like, if you've seen Yu-Gi-Oh, you know about Pegasus's Toon Deck and how it takes these already existing monsters and turns them into cartoons and behave like cartoons, where it's like the proportions start to go weary, they're more animated, goofy looking, cuckoo, and that's what this one kind of felt like, especially with Cruella, like that at the end when they put her in the straitjacket to go to the asylum, the insane asylum. I can see her eyes like shifting and trying to be all cuckoo, and it just doesn't work. She was crazy in the first one in an intense way.
Not like in a manic way.
Yeah, not in this cuckoo, insane way.
It feels like someone did a read off of the Wikipedia and forgot to add the heart of 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah, they just tried to make it this goofy thing, and I feel like it happens to a lot of sequels where they try to make it more lighthearted and they just try to make things more happy and jokey and fun, but it kind of ruins the tone that it sets in the first movie. Like, the tone doesn't continue into the sequel. They change the vibe to be more lighthearted, fun, goofy, whatever. And I feel like that happens in a lot of sequels. Like, look at Cinderella. Cinderella 2, I know we refuse to acknowledge its existence. It's a collage of stories, but it's the same way.
Cinderella wasn't necessarily a dark story.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
It's such
Cinderella was not treated well, and, like, she didn't have the easiest life. But it was honest with that. But in Cinderella 2, it sugarcoated a lot.
Sugarcoated and once again tried to make things all happy goofy, like when you had Jacques becoming human randomly. Whatever the other stories were, I can't remember. Cinderella struggling to adjust to palace life, but they made fun of her for it.
I mean, same. I would find it difficult.
But they made fun of her for it, is the thing. They made her difficulties a joke versus just letting it be difficult for her. And then you had Anastasia with the baker, which is the only story anyone acknowledges from that movie. But
I really liked the one where she was like having a hard time adjusting, and then you're right, then the one with Anastasia, because it's adorable.
Which is why we all acknowledge it comes after the third one. But anyways, this movie it's not that great of a movie. Only part I like about it is that it confirms what I said in the first one.
Not that Michael Short, isn't it?
You wouldn't know it was Martin Short to begin with if you didn't know it.
You're right.
He has a weird accent and everything else with him. Like, you wouldn't have known that was Martin Short. I never knew it was Martin Short.
Yeah. No, it was really off-putting listening to all the voice acting.
The only voice actor that, like, struck me was Anita's because it's Ariel.
Yeah, and she doesn't talk enough.
No, Jodie Benson voices Anita in this one, and it's just...
She did a good job. But Pongo had, like, this deep voice they just didn't have in this movie.
And it wasn't as elegant.
Yeah, no.
He had this way of speaking about Roger being his pet, wanting to be like his friend, and then having this really close relationship with Purdy, and like going after the Dalmatians. And here they were just like, we're just going to make him a tired dad, which, don't get me wrong, I don't blame him for being a tired dad, but no.
Here's the thing. I feel like they did Pongo such a disservice. Like, we are parents of one kid,
Yep.
but we're still parents.
Yep.
I feel like they just did Pongo so dirty.
They did.
And Pretty so dirty because you could tell from the first movie that they were such attentive parents.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that all parents don't have their bad days, but like, this is the moral of movies where like they can still be at their best. And they did not. And even if they wanted to take it in a way where it's like they were not on their best. And when Patrick came back, they should have been like, I am so sorry. And I know we got like a tiny bit of that, but they should have been way more remorseful for getting a kid.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole family should have, because none of the siblings realized it.
But to be fair, they were also in the midst of having all the other kids, like all the other puppies, like kidnapped as well. Again.
I know. But like, I'm saying when like Pat was originally gone, before everyone else was kidnapped.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. This is why I don't like that they did a Home Alone storyline.
Yeah, I feel like the Home Alone was not the best.
Home Alone with dogs is what this movie should be called.
And I feel like they didn't even do Home Alone justice.
Not even a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I like that there was more back and forth between the puppies and Cruella besides just running away. But like, I feel I'm going to be a lot happier for next week's episode. I don't got anything more to say on it. Also, the fact that like they tried to have more music in this and it just did not work.
I think the problem was what Cruella de Vil was such a good song.
Because it hit the vibe of the movie.
And so they wanted to like add to that. But the problem is, it didn't fit the vibe. I mean, neither did Canine Crunchies, but it sounded like a actual jingle that would be sold on TV.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was a TV commercial ad jingle. That's fine. Canine Crunchies, Canine Crunchies.
Yeah, but
like, when you have someone like Roger, who is very obviously a much more serious musician.
Oh, 100%.
He's not going to create these. He's not a character to have these musical productions like that you would see in like a movie musical.
And if he did, he would have to be like being paid a lot of money to like go outside its comfort zone.
I mean, yeah, but I'm saying like as a character.
Yeah.
You have a serious musician. It doesn't make sense to have that kind of character to have a musical number with Anita in a way that's very movie musical-esque.
Like Teen Beach Movie-esque.
Yeah. Like, he had Cruella de Vil for a reason, because it was a much more serious composition for him. But it also complemented the storyline, considering that's also when we saw like silhouette in the door, and you got to see her and all of those things. So like it added to the character, added to the story, was just an entertaining song altogether, and it worked in that way. Here, nothing added to it. It was out of place.
It felt like there's a lot of people who think that a lot of Disney sequels are just like soulless and are cash grabs. I don't think that's what this movie is.
This came during the era of Disney direct-to-video sequels.
And it's not soulless. It does have a soul. But I feel like whoever made this movie did not watch 101 Dalmatians, the original. Or if they did, they didn't understand it. They didn't understand what made people love it.
Agreed.
And they didn't read the source material either. Because guess what? 100 Dalmatians was based off of a book called 101 Dalmatians.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like sequels are not a bad move at all. Sometimes there are really good sequels, like Frozen 2.
We love Frozen 2 over Frozen 1.
Very much so.
Yes, 100%.
You will not change my mind. But the sequels have to come from a place where the tone of the movie doesn't change, like the franchise.
And I also feel like the person who writes the sequel has to love the first one.
If you don't love the first one, there's no way you're going to make the sequel successful. It never works.
It's true.
There's a reason why Descendants Rise of Red failed. Even the director was different.
I did not know that. I wonder what would happen if the person who wrote the live action Snow White also liked the Snow White movie. Just saying.
I'm sure he did. We all know certain someone who didn't.
I still want my 2 hours back.
I know. But I think we're going to let you guys go. So we'll see you guys next week for... Would this be our first sequel live action versus animation?
Yes.
They're two completely different movies, but we're going to do it anyway. We'll see which one's better, 102 Dalmatians or 101 Dalmatians 2. God, I hate these titles.
And we can compare and contrast the original live action versus the second sequel live action.
God, this is going to be fun.
My brain is going to hurt next week.
Bye, Fred.